The afternoon sun beat down on the asphalt parking lot of Precision Arms and Tactical, the largest gun store in Phoenix, Arizona. Inside, air conditioning fought a losing battle against the 100-degree heat seeping through the glass storefront. The store was busy for a Tuesday, off-duty cops browsing holsters, weekend shooters comparing optics, a few younger guys debating the merits of AR-15 configurations they'd only ever seen on YouTube. Behind the counter, Dominic, 26, sleeve tattoos and a confidence that came from never being told he was wrong, rang up a sale while half listening to his co-worker Leo's story about some disastrous Tinder date. The door chime rang. An old man walked in, not elderly exactly, but definitely north of 70. He moved with the careful deliberation of someone whose joints had logged too many miles, wearing faded Wranglers, a tucked-in plaid shirt, and work boots that had seen better decades. His hands, visible as he pushed his reading glasses up his nose, were gnarled with age spots and old scars, the kind that came from a lifetime of manual labor. He headed straight for the rifle section. Dominic elbowed Leo. "Check out Gramps over there. $10 says he's looking for something to hang over his fireplace." Leo snorted. "Nah, man. He's gonna ask if we carry muskets." The old man, his name was Miles, though nobody had bothered to ask, ran his weathered fingers along a display of modern sporting rifles, AR-15s, SCAR-17s, precision bolt actions with price tags that made casual shoppers wince. He paused at an Accuracy International AXMC, lifting it carefully from the rack with the slow precision of someone checking weight and balance. "Can I help you, sir?" Easton, the senior sales associate at 32, approached with the kind of polite skepticism reserved for customers who looked like they'd wandered into the wrong store. "Just looking," Miles said quietly. His voice was rough, like gravel in a cement mixer. "Seeing what's new." "That's a pretty advanced rifle," Easton said, the subtext clear. "Maybe something simpler would be better for you. Runs about $8,000. Mostly purchased by competitive long-range shooters and serious professionals." "I know what it is." Miles worked the bolt, smooth despite his arthritic-looking hands. "Good action. Better than the old L96 we had back in the day." Back in the day? Leo had drifted over, smelling entertainment. "What'd you shoot back then, sir? Winchester lever action?" Dominic covered his laugh with a cough. Miles set the rifle down carefully. "Lots of things. Depended on the job." "The job?" Dominic repeated, making air quotes. "Let me guess. Hunting? Maybe some target shooting at the VFW?" "Something like that." The condescension was thick now. Easton, trying to be professional, redirected. "We've got some excellent options more suited for traditional shooting. Bolt actions in common calibers. Very reliable. Over here, I'm fine browsing, thanks." As Miles moved down the line, examining optics and trigger assemblies with an attention to detail that seemed almost academic, the comments started. Quiet enough that he probably couldn't hear, or at least could pretend not to. "Dude's probably here because he's bored," Leo muttered. "Wife kicked him out of the house so she could watch her stories in peace." "Or he's having some kind of midlife crisis," Dominic added. "Except it's like end-of-life crisis. Gonna buy a Corvette next." "My grandfather does this," Easton said, slightly more sympathetic. "Gets nostalgic about the old days, wants to look at guns he can't afford and probably couldn't shoot anymore anyway. It's sad, really." A woman browsing handguns, Clara, a nurse still in scrubs from her shift, overheard and frowned. "That's kind of cruel. He's just looking." "It's not cruel. It's realistic," Dominic said. "Look at his hands. Guy probably can't even grip properly anymore. But sure, let him waste our time while actual customers wait." Miles had moved to the ammunition section, reading the specifications on match-grade .338 Lapua Magnum with the intensity of someone decoding a foreign language, or someone who knew exactly what they were looking at and was checking if standards had improved. 5 miles away, in a glass and steel office building that housed the corporate headquarters of Precision Arms and Tactical, Asher Bennett sat in his corner office reviewing quarterly earnings. At 41, he'd built the company from a single store to a regional chain with 12 locations across Arizona and New Mexico. Former Marine, business degree from ASU, enough drive to bulldoze through the competitive firearms retail market and come out on top. His phone buzzed. Text from his store manager at the Phoenix location, inventory audit done, slow day, couple regulars, one old-timer looking at high-end rifles. Asher almost ignored it. Then his eyes caught on the attached security camera screenshot, standard practice for customers handling expensive merchandise. He zoomed in on the image, went completely still. "No way," he breathed. He enlarged the photo, studying the profile, the way the man stood, the careful way he held the rifle. The age was right, would be mid-70s now. The build matched what it would have become after decades, and those hands, even gnarled with age, held the weapon with a familiarity that couldn't be faked. Asher grabbed his keys and ran. His assistant called after him about his 3 o'clock meeting, but he was already in the elevator, then the parking garage, then his truck. The drive normally took 15 minutes. He made it in 9, breaking at least 4 traffic laws and not caring even a little bit. He burst through the store entrance so hard the door banged against the wall, drawing every eye in the place. His shirt was untucked, his usually perfect hair disheveled, and he was breathing like he'd run the whole way. "Where is he?" Asher demanded. Dominic blinked. "Boss." "What?" "The old man, the one looking at rifles." "Where?" Back corner, near the—" Asher was already moving. Miles stood examining a vintage M40A1, a rifle that had been popular with Marine snipers decades ago. He heard the footsteps approaching fast, turned halfway expecting security or some kind of problem. Instead, he found himself facing a man in business attire whose eyes were wide with something between shock and reverence. "Gunnery Sergeant Miles Hartwell?" Asher's voice cracked slightly. Miles froze. Nobody had called him that in 15 years. "Asher Bennett, sir. 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, Scout Sniper Platoon. I went through your course at Camp Pendleton in 2006. The store had gone quiet. Dominic, Leo, Easton, Clara, everyone within earshot had stopped what they were doing. "Bennett," Miles said slowly, memory clicking into place. "You were the kid from Nevada. Couldn't hit shit at 500 meters your first week. Until you fixed my breathing and trigger control, sir. After that, I qualified expert." Asher's face had gone red. "Sir, what are you doing in Phoenix? I thought you retired to Prescott, hour-and-a-half north, down here visiting my daughter." Miles's weathered face showed something that might have been amusement. "You own this place?" "All 12 locations, sir. Started with the first store 8 years ago." "Good for you." Miles gestured at the rifles. "Nice inventory. Better selection than we had back at Pendleton." "Sir, if I'd known you were coming, I'd have—" Asher turned to his employees, who were all standing frozen, like someone had hit pause. "Do any of you know who this is?" Uncomfortable silence. "This is Gunnery Sergeant Miles Hartwell, United States Marine Corps, retired. He was the chief instructor at the Scout Sniper School for 23 years. 23 years. Every Marine sniper who graduated between 1985 and 2008 went through his course. That's over 2,000 snipers." More silence. Dominic had gone pale. "He didn't just teach shooting," Asher continued, his voice getting harder. "He wrote the curriculum that's still used today. The fieldcraft manual, the range estimation techniques, the stalking exercises that make grown men cry. That's all him. He trained snipers who went on to set world records. He trained instructors who trained more snipers. The entire modern Marine Scout sniper program exists because of what this man built." Miles shifted uncomfortably. "That's overstating it." "No, sir, it's not." Asher's voice was firm. "I wouldn't have made it through the program without your teaching. I wouldn't have survived my deployments without the skills you drilled into me. And I'm not alone. Every Marine sniper for 2 decades owes you." Clara spoke up first. "I'm so sorry, sir. We had no idea." Miles waved it off. "No reason you would. I've been retired 15 years. Not exactly famous outside Marine circles." "Sit down, please," Asher said, pulling over a chair kept behind the counter. "Can I get you water, coffee, anything?" "I'm fine, son. Was just browsing." "Were you looking for something specific? Because anything in this store is yours. No charge." "That's not necessary." "Sir, with respect, shut up and let me do this." Asher grinned. "You spent 2 months teaching me and 40 other Marines how to shoot when we thought we already knew. Least I can do is comp you a rifle." Miles considered. "That AXMC is nice. Wouldn't mind trying it out at the range." "Done. I'll have it transferred today." Asher turned to Easton. "Get the paperwork started. And somebody bring up a chair for the gunnery sergeant. Make him comfortable." Over the next hour, as Asher handled the transfer personally, Miles found himself surrounded by employees who'd gone from dismissive to fascinated. Even Dominic, who'd been the worst offender, sat listening as Miles answered questions about the old days. "What was the longest shot you ever made?" Leo asked. "Officially, 1,247 meters in Kuwait, 1991. But that was early days. Modern snipers have surpassed that many times over with better equipment and training." "Training you developed," Asher interjected, not letting him deflect credit. "What made you such a good instructor?" Clara asked. "If you don't mind me asking." Miles thought about it. "I never forgot what it was like to be bad at something. When I started in the Marines in 1968, I couldn't hit a barn from inside the barn. Failed my first rifle qualification twice, but I had an instructor, Sergeant Major named Coleman, who didn't give up on me. He taught me that shooting isn't about natural talent. It's about understanding fundamentals, practicing them 10,000 times, and being patient with yourself while you learn." "That's what I needed to hear my first week," Asher said quietly. "I was ready to quit. Thought I wasn't cut out for it, but you pulled me aside and said, 'Being bad at something is the first step toward being good at something,'" Miles finished. "I said that to every class, because it's true. Nobody picks up a rifle and shoots expert. It's a learned skill like carpentry or cooking. You just have to care enough to learn it right." Dominic cleared his throat. "Sir, I owe you an apology. The things we said before Mr. Bennett arrived, that was way out of line. We judged you based on your age, and that was wrong." Miles studied him. "You thought I was some old fool reliving past glory?" "Yes, sir. I am old, and I am reliving past glory by looking at modern rifles I'll never use in combat. You weren't entirely wrong." Miles's eyes crinkled at the corners. "But the mistake you made wasn't about me. It was assuming that because someone is old, they don't have anything valuable to offer. Age means experience. Experience means knowledge. And knowledge, young man, is the only thing that actually gets more valuable as you get older." "Yes, sir. I understand that now." Asher checked his watch. "Sir, my range, the indoor facility 2 blocks over, closes to the public in an hour. Would you be willing to come down, maybe put a few rounds through that AXMC? I know the staff would love to meet you." Miles hesitated. "It's been a long time since I shot competitively. Don't want to embarrass myself." "Sir, you could shoot with your eyes closed and still outshoot 90% of our customers." "All right, but no pressure. This is just for fun." 20 minutes later, Miles stood in Lane 7 of Precision Indoor Range, the AXMC positioned on a bench rest in front of him. Asher had quietly spread word about who was shooting, and a crowd had gathered. Off-duty cops, competitive shooters, even a few active-duty Marines who happened to be there. The rifle was chambered in .338 Lapua Magnum, set up for extreme long-range work. The indoor range only went to 100 yards, but it would be enough to demonstrate fundamentals. Miles settled in behind the rifle, his movements slow but methodical. His hands, which had looked so frail examining the rifles earlier, now showed their true nature: steady, controlled, efficient. This was muscle memory from 50 years of practice. "Fundamentals," he said, loud enough for the observers to hear. "Same as they've always been. Natural point of aim, breathing control, trigger press. The rifle doesn't know how old I am. It only knows if I do my job right." He fired 5 rounds, steady and measured. Each shot felt like thunder in the enclosed space. Asher ran the target back. All 5 shots clustered in a group smaller than a quarter, at 100 yards, from a man whose hand shook when he wasn't behind a rifle. That was exceptional. Someone in the crowd whistled. Miles stood up carefully, his back protesting. "Not bad for an old man. Not bad?" A Marine staff sergeant pushed forward. "Sir, that's better than half my platoon shoots, and they're 22 years old." "Then they need more practice," Miles said with a slight smile. "And maybe a better instructor." The crowd laughed. For the next hour, Miles answered questions, demonstrated techniques, and told stories. He explained how to read mirage, how to estimate wind, how to build a stable shooting position from nothing. People took notes. Several Marines recorded videos on their phones, sending them to buddies with messages like, "You won't believe who I met today." Ruby, one of the range safety officers, a former Army marksmanship instructor herself, approached with almost shy reverence. "Sir, I read your manual in instructor school. Changed how I taught entirely. It's an honor to meet you. The honor's mine. Army's producing excellent shooters these days. Because we stole your techniques," she said with a grin. "Borrowed, I mean. Borrowed. Steal away. Knowledge doesn't belong to the Marines. It belongs to anyone willing to learn." As evening approached and the crowd began to thin, Asher found Miles sitting in the range office, nursing a bottle of water and looking tired in the way that comes from being social for too long. "You doing okay, sir?" "Fine. Just not used to being the center of attention anymore." Asher sat down. "Can I ask you something? Why'd you really retire? I heard rumors it wasn't voluntary." Miles sighed. "Politics. New command came in. Wanted to modernize the curriculum. Brought in civilian consultants, talked about cutting training time, making everything more efficient. I pushed back, said you can't rush creating a sniper. It takes time, repetition, patience. They said I was old-fashioned, stuck in my ways. So they forced you out. They retired me with full honors and a ceremony where they praised everything I'd built. Then they changed most of it within a year." His voice carried old bitterness. "I heard they cut the stalking phase by 2 weeks. 2 weeks. You know what happens to snipers who can't stalk properly? They get killed, or they get their teams killed. So yeah, I was angry. Felt like everything I'd worked for was being dismantled by people who'd never spent a day in the field. For what it's worth, sir, the current curriculum has mostly gone back to your methods. The changes didn't work. Too many failures in the field. They quietly reinstated most of what you'd built." Miles looked up. "Really?" "Yes, sir. Your legacy isn't just the snipers you personally trained. It's the fact that the Marine Corps eventually realized you were right. The manual you wrote is still the foundation. The techniques you developed are still standard. You won. Doesn't feel like winning, because you're not there to see it." Asher leaned forward. "Sir, would you be willing to do something for me? For us? Depends what it is. Come speak at my stores. Do clinics, teach classes, share your knowledge. I've got 12 locations now, planning to expand. Every one of them has a range, and every one of them has customers who could benefit from learning from the best. You wouldn't have to shoot if you didn't want to. Just teach. Share what you know before it's lost." Miles shook his head. "I'm 76 years old. Who wants to learn from someone who looks like he could break a hip getting out of bed? Everyone who was in that range today, everyone who's ever benefited from your teaching. Everyone who wants to actually understand shooting instead of just copying what they see on YouTube. Asher's voice was passionate now. Sir, you spent 23 years creating snipers. Don't you want to spend a few more years helping regular people become better shooters? Not for war, for sport, for protection, for the pure satisfaction of mastering a difficult skill? I don't know. Think about it, please. Because what happened today, you being dismissed because you're old, then everyone realizing who you are, that happens everywhere. People see age and assume obsolescence. But you're living proof that knowledge, experience and skill don't diminish with age. They mature, they deepen, they become more valuable. Miles was quiet for a long moment. You know what the worst part of retirement was? Not the lack of respect, not even the changes to my curriculum. It was feeling like everything I knew, everything I'd learned, would die with me. That's the real tragedy of age, watching your knowledge become irrelevant while you're still alive. So don't let it be irrelevant. Teach, share, pass it on. You really think people would come to classes taught by an old Marine who hasn't been in the field in 15 years? Sir, there were 20 people in that range today watching you shoot. Not because you're young or famous or have 1 million YouTube followers. Because you're real, because you've done it. Because when you talk about shooting, every word carries the weight of 50 years of experience. Miles smiled slightly. You learned how to be persuasive since leaving the Marines. I learned from the best. You taught me that persistence matters more than talent. All right, I'll do it, but part-time. I'm too old to work full-time. Whatever you want, sir. Name your terms. They worked out the details over the next 30 minutes, monthly clinics at rotating locations, focusing on fundamentals and fieldcraft, open to anyone, regardless of skill level. Asher would handle all logistics. Miles would just show up and teach. As they walked out to the parking lot, the Phoenix sunset painting the sky orange and purple, Dominic appeared from the store entrance. Sir, Gunnery Sergeant Hartwell? Miles turned. Yes? I wanted to apologize again, properly this time. What I said earlier, that was ignorant. I judged you without knowing anything about you. I'm sorry. Apology accepted. Miles extended his hand. But do me a favor. Anything. Next time you see someone old examining something you think they couldn't possibly understand, consider that maybe they understand it better than you do. Age means they've had more time to learn. That's not a weakness. It's an advantage. Dominic shook his hand firmly. Yes, sir. I'll remember that. As Miles drove back toward Prescott, his arthritic hands steady on the wheel, he felt something he hadn't felt in 15 years. Purpose. Not the purpose of creating warriors, but the quieter purpose of sharing knowledge, of ensuring that what he'd learned over 5 decades wouldn't vanish when he did. The next morning, Asher posted a simple announcement on the Precision Arms and Tactical website. Legendary Marine Scout sniper instructor Miles Hartwell coming out of retirement for monthly masterclasses. Within 48 hours, every class for the next 6 months was sold out. Sometimes the world needs to be reminded that age isn't obsolescence, it's accumulation. And the things that matter most, skill, wisdom, the ability to teach others, those don't fade with time. They just get refined, proven, worth more with every year that passes.